Hello, I'm Tony Marigold. I'm the Vehicle Collection Manager for the Jaguar Daimler Heritage Trust. We're here today to look at our new exhibition at the British Motor Museum at Gaydon about the evolution of the E-type, which we've set up to commemorate the launch of the E-type back in March of 1961 at the Geneva Motor Show. And with me today is Paul Walton, who's the editor of Jaguar World magazine.
Hi Tony, it's great to be here and I'm looking forward to seeing the cars.
Great. Well, I'm sure you'll find it interesting. The first thing, obviously, this picture in front of us, I'm sure you've seen it before. It's
Many times.
A famous picture of Sir William standing by one of the first E-type coupes, 9600 HP, and this is actually in the gardens of the Parc des Eaux Vives in Geneva, which is where the car was launched.
Now, I know this picture really well, but have you had this recoloured?
Yes, we have. The term they use is colour enhanced. You're right, everyone else has seen it in black and white, but because I wanted to give a lot more impact to it as people come up the stairs into the exhibition, yes, so we've had it colour enhanced.
I think it's fantastic and the colour shows a lot more detail than you normally see, and I love all the excitement from all the press guys here. Really excited to see this new car of Sir William's.
Yes, they seem to be really taking it in, lots of concentration on their faces. And for me, being a car person, I like it because you can see a lot more detail on the car than you could in the black and white photo.
So shall we go and see the cars for real?
Yes, yep, let's go.
Tony, I really like these information boards you have around the exhibition. They give a lot more detail about the car's history. I particularly like these pictures here from the car's launch in Geneva in 1961, including this car here.
Yeah, that's the first production E-type Roadster. We know it by its number plate 77RW, and it's just over there.
Shall we go and take a look?
Yes. Right, so Paul, this is 77RW then?
The first production open two-seater.
Correct, yes.
Now, this was part of the car's launch in 1961, but I believe it has a bigger history than that.
Yes, you're right. Originally, it wasn't planned to go to the launch at Geneva. The plan was for all of the press drives to be done in the coupe, but there was so much demand for that, they phoned back to the factory and told Norman Jewis, their test driver, to get it over to Geneva fast and basically to drive it out there. His initial response was, yeah, but the car's full of test equipment, we can't do that. They said, don't worry, we're taking the test equipment out at the moment. And he said, I've got to go home and get my overnight bag. No, that's already in your office, your wife's dropped it off. And here's your ferry tickets. So basically he got in the car, he caught the last ferry from Dover, drove right through the night and arrived at Geneva 10 to 10 the following morning, just in time to take the press round for the second day.
What a fantastic drive that must have been.
Yeah, and this is before the days of the M25, the M20, no motorways across France. So yeah, overnight, one way, on his own, absolutely fantastic drive, legendary in Jaguar terms.
So Tony, why is there a C and a D-type in an E-type exhibition?
Well, I said the exhibition is about the evolution of the E-type. And basically it started from this with the C-type, which is, as I think you know, the C stands for competition. It was the competition version of the XK120. And this car was designed specifically for racing. So the chassis was completely changed. Instead of the traditional steel chassis, it's got a tubular steel one with this aerodynamic curved body.
So was Serie also responsible for the D-type?
For the bodywork, yes, and as you can see, there are lots of similarities in terms of the curves and the lines of the bodywork. So this is more aerodynamic than the D-type. It's lighter also, and the fin on the back is to improve high-speed stability as it goes down the Mulsanne straight.
I believe these got to 200 miles an hour on the Mulsanne.
Yeah, that's right, 190, 200 miles an hour in the middle of the night.
Impressive.
Yeah.
And is this the last car until we get to the E-type?
There was actually one other thing in between the D-type and the E-type.
So Tony, tell me what this is. The back half looks like a D-type, while the front is starting to look like an E-type.
Yeah, towards the end of the 1950s, Jaguar made two prototypes, E1A, which was scrapped and no longer exists, and E2A, and this car is E2A.
And so tell me, why is this important? How is this linked to the D-type?
It very much is an evolution from the D-type. It's got the central tub of the D-type, although it's been extended to become a rear monocoque because that houses the new independent rear suspension system. Engine, as you know from a D-type, sits in a subframe at the front of the car underneath that wonderful bonnet.
And if it was a prototype, why has it got racing colours?
The American racing driver Briggs Cunningham asked Sir William Lyons if he could race this at Le Mans in 1960. And it's his colours, white with the blue stripes.
I believe originally it had a 3-litre engine, but now it's got a 3.8?
Yeah, 3-litre was the engine size for Le Mans, but when it was shipped over to the States for Briggs Cunningham to race, he installed the 3.8 engine, which was the same as they'd been using in the D-types. And to get that engine under the bonnet, because it's taller than the 3-litre, they had to put this bonnet bulge on it, which has become an iconic part of not just the E-types, but lots of Jaguars since then.
And here we are at the E-type, and what a glorious thing it is. So how did this production model evolve from the E2A we've just talked about?
The body section is very similar. You've got the central body tub, which extends backwards and takes the new independent rear suspension system. Then the front half of the car is a subframe which holds the engine, steering, suspension and everything, and of course is clothed by that bonnet with the iconic power bulbs that we talked about with the E2A.
Now this example is a fixed head coupe, and I believe this car wasn't planned from the start.
That's correct. The original plan was just to produce a roadster, and all of the initial design work from Serie was on the body of the roadster, and an engineer called Bob Blake actually started doing the metalwork, putting the body together. Bob Blake always liked the idea of a coupe anyway, and without it being sanctioned by Sir William, he actually mocked one up in the corner of the workshop and got what he thought was a fairly good shape. And one day Sir William Lyons saw this in the corner of the workshop and went up and said, "Blake, did you do this?" And Bob Blake obviously had to say, "Yes, Sir William, I did." And Sir William's response is reported as being fairly short but positive. He said, "I like it, we'll make it."
Which is ironic because the fixed head coupe was chosen to be shown on Jaguar stand at the 1961 Geneva show.
That's right. It was also used as for the initial press car drive, 9600 HP we've seen already. But the more ironic thing is, go on a couple of years, and Sir William is reported as saying the coupe was his favourite version of the E-type.
The E-type was popular from the start, but Jaguar did slowly start to develop it. This example has the first of the upgrades. How does this differ from the 3.8 coupe we've just talked about?
Right, in 1964, Jaguar came out with the 4.2-litre version of the XK engine, and the E-type was the launch car for that. At the same time, they started building their own gearboxes instead of using the Moss gearboxes. Now, their own gearboxes had synchromesh on all gears, so they made for a much nicer, smoother gear change, so it made a car much nicer to drive than the earlier ones. They also upgraded the brakes, so not only was it better to drive, but it was much better at stopping. And they then turned their attention to the interior, and they replaced the very basic bucket seats from the early series ones with these seats which are wider, more comfortable, adjustable. So overall, not only is it a better car to drive, but much more comfortable all round.
So with the more comfortable interior, the better gearbox, the slightly larger engine and the bigger brakes, but still the faired-in headlights, many people reckon this E-type 4.2 is the most desirable model of them all.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
This is a Series 2 E-type that arrived in 1968 that was the first of the major facelifts that Jaguar gave the car. So what did they do to improve it?
Right. Mechanically, most of this is the same as the Series 1 4.2. Engine gearbox is the same. They did make further improvements to the brakes, so the braking is much better than even on the car from 64. So you use the word facelift, and that's where most people see the changes, which is the front end of the car. Some of it for US safety legislation, they've had to remove the faired-in headlights. They wanted less glass on the front. The other big change is actually the air intake in front of the radiator is much bigger now than it was before. Now that's basically to get a lot more air in through the radiator because some of the early cars were known to overheat.
A lot of people don't like the Series 2 because of those open headlights, not preferring it to the Series 1. Personally, I think this is the best one to drive. Those mechanical changes make it the best one.
Yeah, that's right. So for the aesthetics, a lot of people aren't keen on it. But I personally own a 1970 Series 2, and it's a brilliant car to drive, very, very capable, much better brakes than the early cars. And yes, I think in terms of driving, then yes, it probably is the best of the E-types.
So here we are at the end of the E-type evolution, but with two very different cars, what we've seen so far. Explain to me more about this one.
Right. In 1970, Jaguar came out with the V12 engine, which they launched in the E-type, which was now in Series 3 guys. So V12 engine, 4 Stromberg carburetors, much the same gearbox, rear axle as the previous cars, but a very different car. Now in the States, E-types weren't selling very well. So British Leyland, who were the owners of Jaguar at the time, got together with Bob Tullius, who ran a Group 44 racing team, and they started racing V12 E-types in the States. Had a fairly successful year in 1974, and then in 1975, Bob Tullius's Group 44 went on to win the SCCA championship in this car.
That showed what the E-type could do. Now this one is even more of a beast, but it wasn't made by Jaguar, was it?
This was built by a private racer, based on a Series 3 E-type, again starting with a V12 engine. It's changed a lot over the years. It was raced through the 70s, 80s and 90s. It's got a 7.3 litre V12 engine with 6 twin-choke Weber carburetors on it. And in 2001, it was timed at 184 miles an hour, earning it the title of the world's fastest E-type.